All right, I think we're live here, starting the show today with John Kerry, the failed presidential...
I just don't agree with your facts, which began with the presentation of one of the most outrageously persistent lies that I hear, which is this private jet. We don't own a private jet. I don't own a private jet. I personally have never owned a private jet. And obviously, it's pretty stupid to talk about coming in a private jet from the State Department up here. It just, honestly.
All right, folks, that is the former failed presidential nominee of the Democrat, not Democratic, it's Democrat Party from 2005, John Kerry. There he is. That was a couple of days ago. It did not make the cut for the weekend or for yesterday's GAMcast. But I wanted to start the show with the day with that because it really does say a lot about where we are today. As a country and as a nation, and that's just an outright lie. And folks, I'm not going to sit here and parse through it and explain that he never owned it personally. It was always his wife or his family. Give me a flipping break. We all knew what he meant, and the point of that little bit is the easiest thing in the world to do is just when they bring up the private jet, just don't talk about it. I mean, you know the Democrat media is going to cover for you. You know no one's going to push it. You know as soon as a Democrat gets a chance to answer questions, they're going to move on. But we are at the point now where they not only are going to deny the absolute reality in your face, but they're going to get mad if you dare to come up and bring something up to them. I mean, listen, folks, it's called impeachment in the law. There's a witness. The witness is on the stand. They say something, and then you got 2 or 3 points you're going to make. They're not even necessarily conclusive. They're not even necessarily death blows. They're just points to be made. That's it. But you know you're at a point when they won't even let you make these simple points that he lies to your face. It's just a joke. And the other, just so everybody understands and knows, just so you get it, John Kerry, I don't think was very personally wealthy himself, but he married into the old Heinz fortune. Heinz, the ketchup. So he just lived life as a very, 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 wealthy. I'm not talking about you do pretty well and you got a country club membership and you got a really nice house, or even if it's 10,000 square feet. I'm talking he has servants, mansions, limos. You go to the Masters, you don't drive, you take a helicopter and they land you right there. I mean, that's how wealthy he is. Fine. Listen, you want to point out he's wealthy, you want to point out he's talking about climate change and probably you shouldn't be doing private jets. Frankly, I'll be honest with you folks, it didn't even say anything to me. But again, the bigger point of that bit is not what people have been telling you. Technically, it's not true. He's also, by the way, there are all these things now where you can take private jets, but you don't technically own it. I forget, there's a couple of brands that do it. But anyway, the point there is you're closer to pure fascism when they'll just, not only did they lie, but when you just point out simple things, they no longer even feel the need to concede the obvious. That's the bigger point. And all the news today, I've got, looks like about 12 to 15 slides to get through. I'm going to try to do it in 40 minutes or less. A couple things, by the way. It looks like we didn't lose any people with my hiatus. I mean, pretty much everybody's back, and hopefully we can grow it this time. But this time it's for me. I'm not going to try to change the world. I'm not going to try to cram in all this stuff you need to know in 40 minutes. All those things I used to try to do, I think was in part of the reason I burned out a little bit. So it's going to be what it sort of was at the end, and I put too much pressure on myself. This is, if you want to tune in and listen, great. I couldn't be more gratified. You can do it on YouTube. You can do it on Twitter. I am also dumping it on Rumble. If you want to do it on Rumble, if you're doing that, please subscribe to any of those. That will help me out a bit. But it's really got to be for me. This is just going to be me pinning my thoughts out to you folks that want to listen. Here's what I think is really the news that's going on. I've said it before. I'll say it again. You're going to hear things here you're not going to hear anywhere else. You're going to get a lot more in-depth analysis, a lot of other things, et cetera, et cetera. Let's get back to the news and move on. So big news yesterday. When I went to the gym, I saw this everywhere. And this is what they do. They literally create a narrative every day. Now, it's complete garbage. I'm going to tell you what the headline is. I'm going to the New York Crimes because, as you know, I go to their sources. Donald Trump and his allies are planning a sweeping expansion of presidential powers if voters return him to the White House. That includes limiting the independence of federal agencies. How Donald Trump and his allies want to expand presidential power if he's elected, blah, 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 blah. And everywhere on MSNBC and CNN, because at the gym, they got one station on Fox. They have two on MSNBC, two on CNN, etc. Just goes to show you that, listen, I'm broadcasting from a very blue city. So to be fair, that might match the clientele. But I saw that on these screens, and I thought, what in the world has Trump said now? Remember what I told you. If he says it, they'll use it. If they don't, they'll manufacture it. This is an example of manufacturing it. Turns out he didn't say anything, right? Not really. So anyway, so here's what he's going to do. If he gets elected, he's going to bring independent agencies. Now, if you're a fan of the Constitution like I am, and you know the Constitution like I do, and you know what, I think it's in the bio we do every day, that we interpret the news of the day through the lens of the law, the Constitution, and history. If you know those three things, when you read those first three words, bring independent agencies, okay, wait a minute. There are no independent agencies in the federal executive branch. So already you got a problem. And by the way, all you brilliant people out there who responded to me and said, what about the Federal Reserve? That's not technically in the executive branch. So you get the A for the day, but let's move on. And it's beside the point. Okay, but I'll give you credit. That's a good one. But everybody else, there are no independent agencies. And again, this is what I've been telling you since I've been coming back. And this is really, they've really ratcheted up the time that I was out from December 16th to July 15th. They really ratcheted this stuff up, folks. Or maybe it was the 14th. I can't remember. It doesn't matter. They've really ratcheted this stuff up. And they are attacking the Constitution everywhere. A lot of this stuff about Trump and the boxes hoax, that is an absolute direct attack, not only on Trump, not only election interference, but it's also a direct attack to get you to think the idea that, oh, Congress can pass laws that regulate the president, just like they can pass laws that regulate the Supreme Court. You're hearing that out there. We talked about that yesterday. Here you go right here. Oh, these agencies, why they're independent. Now, they don't say it, but let's hear the ones they say. The Federal Communications Commission and the Federal Trade Commission under direct presidential control. Who controls them now? How do you have a constitution where you elect the only member of the executive branch elected by the people is the president? You don't have a president if he doesn't control the entire federal government. That is a direct attack on your ability to elect the person you want to lead it, and then they pick people below them. It's also part of a myth that they like to create. You ever notice whenever Trump's in charge, why, it's your FCC and it's your FTC. But when Biden, he's just so erudite and above the fray. Obviously, it's Merrick Garland making all the decisions. First off, it's a lie. Garland knows, even if or Biden doesn't tell him, which I'm sure he does. He may do it through Condoleezza Rice, or some people believe it through Obama. It doesn't matter. He absolutely does tell them, or they know what they're supposed to do, right? But you should want that. That's what a democracy, a constitutional republic is. You elect somebody, and I expect them to get rid of those people and put into place what we voted for. They're getting you used to this whole idea. That's all this was yesterday. It's an attack on Trump to scare you. Oh, my God, democracy, if we vote for Trump. But the Democrats suck, but, got to have some democracy around here, so I can't vote for Trump. Designed to do that. Number two, to subtly reinforce the idea that this whole constitutional idea that they have out there, it's a bad thing. These agencies are supposed to be independent. And of course, they're only going to be independent when Republicans are in charge and they don't like what's going on. When it's Democrats, it won't be. So anyway, all right, folks, I got to move on. So I got a lot of stories to get to, but that's basically that hoax debunked. All right, some other big news happened last night. The Georgia Supreme Court has denied former President Trump's request to quash the work of the district attorney. That would be the local attorney. I am broadcasting from Fulton County right now. She is probing into efforts to overturn the election. This is from ABC News, one of the alphabet networks, just as bad as the New York crimes. It makes my blood boil every time I read these stories. Efforts to overturn the 2020 election. Okay, 5 or 6 years ago, you couldn't have gotten away with that. That's not the way it worked, right? You had to state the facts. Trump's efforts to challenge Biden's certifications, Trump's efforts to see if he could find votes sufficient to win Georgia, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I got to find a way to silence that phone when I will in the coming days, folks. I will find a way to silence that phone or make it go straight to voicemail. I apologize, but anyway. So he's not trying to overturn anything. It's all a complete fabrication. This whole hoax is a complete fabrication. I don't have time to we may do it in the future, but The phone call itself, you can listen to it yourself. It's obvious he's not trying to overturn anything. It's obvious what he's saying is, look, there was rampant fraud, and based on the rampant fraud, and I only lost by 11, you can find 12,000 votes that really should be for me, and I'll take that stake back. That's obviously what he means. It's obvious when they start to investigate it that it's a hoax. You don't need to know anymore. It's a hoax. If they go forward with it, it's a hoax. Now, I read the opinion, because you know what we do on the Great American Mail. I actually go to the source. I pulled down the opinion at about 5:30 this morning. I read the whole daggum thing. If you're watching it on the YouTube or the Rumbles or Twitter, here it is right here. This is the opinion. It's about 6 pages. I read it. It's a single space, all of it. Now, I'm going to break this down for you. But here, let me just tell you that those of you who want to know the gist, and then I'll break it down a little bit. We have 8 Republican members of the Supreme Court, 1 Democrat, okay? Folks, this is quoted a quote-unquote conservative court. Now, they chose not to do it. But we're going to break down this opinion a little bit because I want you to understand what's going on here, okay? First and foremost, I've said this before, all these things get Trump, every single solitary one of them. Every one of them. Bragg, January 6th, the document hoax, the defamation by what's-her-name over the rape. They're all hoaxes. They're all attacks on the rule of law. And the thing that bothers me is not so much that it's Trump, because listen, I don't like them doing it to Trump, but it's not Trump that worries me. It's Trump, then it's Trump's allies, then it's you and me. And anybody with any sense sees that. They're destroying something beautiful. That's another problem with this. You need to have the rule of law. You cannot allow people to claim, I don't like what you said, so that's defamation, and I get to go roll the dice and see if the jury will give me some money. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But I'm going to bankrupt you in the meantime. I mean, that's just tyranny through another mechanism. But let's get back to this opinion because I want to go into it. So it starts out, Petitioner Donald Trump filed directly in this court. Right? Now, that's a hint there where they're going. And a, quote, original petition for writs of mandamus and prohibition. Blah, blah, blah. Writ of mandamus is basically going, you, court, tell this public official to do something they need to do, right? Basically. And in this particular instance, he wants the court to tell or to quash or to tell these various parties to dismiss this grand jury. He doesn't like it. Anyway, the meat of the substance of the opinion comes in the second page. And I'll read it directly. In fact, let me bring it up on the screen for those of you who want to follow along. This is the actual opinion. You're now looking at it. We're at the very bottom of page 2. It is true that this court has the authority to grant original relief in the nature of a mandamus and prohibition, and cites the Constitution. But this court, quote, has chosen to maintain its general status as an appellate court and exercise its jurisdiction only in extremely rare situations where the need has been shown. And then it cites a bunch of cases, okay? If you're looking on the screen, you can see that and read it for yourself. Let me tell you what that is. Let me translate that for you. Yeah, we could do it, but we're not going to. And that's fine. That's fine. I have no problem if they start and stop at this. That should have been the end of it, okay? They should have said, yeah, technically we've got the authority to do what you want me to do, right, and shut down this probe, but I'm not going to do it. Okay, but because it's only been rare instances, this is not that instance, fine. I disagree, and if I were on the court, it would not have been 9-0. All 8 Republicans voting against Trump and the Democrat voting against Trump as well. I would have said we should take this thing, and we should look at it, because this is a historically unique thing, and it is unprecedented. And that's exactly what this type of relief that we admit we have is for, but they choose not to. Fine. So it goes on, and I'll highlight it because it gets a little harder to read if you're following along here reading it. There you go. I've highlighted it for you. And the court has made clear that a petitioner cannot invoke this court's original jurisdiction as a way to circumvent the ordinary channels of obtaining the relief he seeks without some showing that he is being prevented fair access to the ordinary channels. So reason number 1, it's an extraordinary relief that we have, but we're not going to do it here because we don't think it warrants it. Fine. Number 2, you need to go through the ordinary channels. All right. And so what are the ordinary channels? They say we're an appellate court. Ordinary channels, you go to the Superior Court in Georgia. In other states, it varies. It's different. You go to the Superior Court. Superior Court says, blah, 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 nope, go to the Court of Appeals, which you are entitled to do. You are entitled to do. You have a right. You can do it. The whole procedure. File in 30 days, pay the fee, bingo, bango, you're in the Court of Appeals. That's it for you're entitled to. Georgia's Supreme Court, like most, is basically a court of certiorari. You have to ask it. You have to file it for a quote-unquote writ of certiorari. Will you please take my case? Some things you get the right, but most of them you don't. So Trump would be in that certiorari. He'd have to ask. And they're saying, hey, no, you should go through the ordinary procedure. Okay, so this is the second reason he should have gone through the ordinary procedure. Now, this is interesting, okay? So going on along, reading along here, petitioner's claim fails in the light of that precedent. He makes no showing that he has been prevented fair access to ordinary channels. Notably, petitioner does not assert that the Superior Court has denied him the opportunity or the ability to seek the relief he requests from this court, okay? And then here we go right now. I'm going to highlight the real part of it, okay? Here we go. Indeed, I lost my place. Where are we at? He admits that in March of 23, right? So that would have been about 4 months ago, a little over. He submitted to the Superior Court clerk, filed motions in which he sought to quash the special purpose grand jury's report and disqualify Willis. Although he complains that Judge McBurney has yet to rule on these motions, he is not asking the court to compel McBurney to rule. Let me translate that for you, folks. Okay, number one reason we won't do it is, technically we have this power, but we don't think this warrants it. Number two, you haven't gone through the ordinary channels. In fact, you admit that you've gone through the ordinary channels and you haven't been excluded because you filed a motion. Oh, but he hasn't ruled. He hasn't ruled in 4 months, 4.5 months. He's not going to rule, folks. He could have. He's not taking it seriously. So what am I supposed to do? I went through the ordinary channel. He won't rule. Guess what? Until he rules, I can't even apply to the Court of Appeals like you want me to do. And I can't file the writ of certiorari that you're going to request that I do. So you're saying to me the second reason is you need to go through ordinary channels and there's no evidence you can't go through them. Well, yeah, there is. I've filed the motions and he won't rule. He doesn't seem to get that this is important. Right, folks, we're going to the polls not but in Iowa, they're going to the polls. In 6 months, they'll be voting. The campaign is on. This is a hot and heavy thing. Oh, well, there's no evidence you can't go through the channels. He won't rule, but what's the problem? Now, look, folks, I'm going to be honest with you. As you know, I practice in this area. I know it is not uncommon at all for a Superior Court to take 6 months, even longer, a year, to rule on motions of these types. I'm not saying that's not, but this is not an ordinary, uncommon situation. Folks, I could go on. It's not true. Let me make one more point I want to make. So the second point is, this is where I don't like these courts. They're playing it fast and loose. They say the second reason is there's no evidence you can't go through ordinary channels, but their own opinion that somebody wrote, let me show you how this works. These judges didn't write this. Some clerk wrote this. And then they write it and they bring it to I had this position, not for a judge, but in a big law firm, I've had this position. They have you write the first draft. You bring it to them and they say, I like this, I like that, change this, make this more powerful, I want to add this point. And you go back and you redraft it to them, which is fine. It's the way it should work. They thought about this. They all read it. All nine of them signed off on it, okay? This is not very well written, right? But they don't care. That's the point. Our second point is you haven't demonstrated you can't go through ordinary signals or the ordinary channels. Well, it looks like the channels are clogged, but whatever. And they're just playing games with us. This is not funny. And the reason I tell you all this is to tell you this. When these people go, well, he lost in court. Went to the court and the court wouldn't do anything. If this is what they consider to be a court, we got problems. And let me just say one other point. I think I've made this point in various other contexts in prior shows, but you have to understand this, folks. This is where, as a country, we should be learning, right? We're going, okay, the laws aren't sufficiently set up for this type of a thing. We're not ready for rogue prosecutors willing to prosecute. For crying out loud, folks, Biden has indicted not only his former rival for the presidency, but his current rival for the presidency. And people just go, well, it's just the way it goes. Nobody's above the law. And what? This is crazy stuff. And what we should be learning from that is, how do we come up with a situation to fix it? Right? Let's have a special way. If a presidential candidate is being indicted improperly by a rogue prosecutor, this is Trump's point, not mine. It's what he says. I don't know if it's right or not. That's what he says. We got to have a special procedure so that this can be looked at. This is not complicated stuff. And instead, we're just going through the motions, acting like it's no big deal. All right, well, here's the final problem I have with this case. By the fourth page, and if you're looking at it on the Twitter or the Rumble or YouTube, moreover, and this is where, even if the petition were procedurally appropriate, petitioner has not shown he would be entitled to the relief he seeks. Now, folks, again, it's a little bit inside baseball with the law, but you don't need to do this. Right? This is what's in the law called dicta, another Latin term. All right? And dicta is basically opinions you're rendering that you don't need to render. You've already said, hey, this is an extraordinary writ that, we have the power to do it, but we're not going to do it because I don't think it warrants it. Number two, you haven't followed the proper procedures, nor shown that you're not able to. Well, you kind of did show you were not able to, but we're going to pretend you didn't. Okay, fine. End the opinion right there. That's the end of it. We're done. Sorry. Well, Hope McBurney rules. If he doesn't, call us. Yeah, the election's over. He call us. Don't call us then because it'll be moot. But whatever. Now they go to this. Moreover, even if it were persistent. So now we're gonna opine on what's going on here and about how this is proper. That's completely inappropriate. It's not what they should do, but they give an opinion. Basically what they say is you can't establish that there's anything wrong here. And I tell you all that to tell you this, folks. There is a whole problem here. The Democrat Party is united, okay, in a confederacy to destroy the Constitution, the truth, and Trump. So they're all in. And they have managed to co-opt a significant portion of Republicans who don't want anything to do with this. And shame on the Republicans because, folks, if you can't go to the courts, where do you go? Where do you go to get relief? That's the point here. Anyway, so fact is, turns out Trump is not going to be able to shut down this Fani Willis probe. It's going to continue. Before I get to some other stories where I want to go, I want to take a brief aside here. And one of the things that's happened since the Dobbs decisions came out, and I want you to understand, the Dobbs decision was not quote-unquote conservative. It's basically a moderate decision. Dobbs basically says it goes back to the states. They can do what they want. And most of the states, even the harshest of the states, is allowing abortion, at least for a certain number of weeks, okay? That all being said, I want you to understand the conservative position, quote-unquote, or the constitutional position, easily could have been. And I'm not taking any position on this. Don't write me. If you want to write me, Publius at GAMcast.net, Publius at GAMcast.net. You can write me anything you want. Some people do. I read every single one of them. Look, I'm not taking any position. It's not my opinion. But I'm just telling you constitutionally, there are people who argue that as soon as that fetus becomes viable, or even some people argue from the moment of conception, it doesn't matter where you want to put it, but wherever you put it, that immediately becomes a citizen, and a citizen has 14th Amendment rights, and that's arguably murder. Now, that could be they could have said, hey, we're not going to just go, it's up to the states, they can't prohibit abortion, to, okay, it's up to the states, do what they want. They could have taken the other position, which is there'll be no abortions, because that's murder. It's hereby outlawed, federally outlawed. They could have done that. They didn't do that. And this is part of what goes on when one of the things, and I can't remember his name now, but it's, I think it was a book called Left Turn, where he writes, and he talks about the idea that you only ever hear left and lefter. You never hear a real conservative viewpoint. And so you have no basis to really understand it. But anyway, since Dobbs has come out, the left has just gone more insane about abortion. I mean, and so now one of the big issues, quote unquote, that we're supposedly facing is states, right, where you're in the military, but you don't get abortion past, say, 8 weeks. What do you do? Right? So John Kirby, who's one of the few people in the Biden administration that's actually competent, he does a fairly good job given what they give him. He got a question about anti-abortion. If you're in the military and you're in a state that doesn't permit abortion, right, at least after a certain point, right, and then what you've got to do is you've got to go out of state, and there's a whole big issue. Apparently Biden wants to be able to, people, if they want to go to California and New York, if it's after 8 weeks or whatever it is. I don't know, but I want you to listen to his answer, folks. Just listen to his answer, and I'll come back and make the point. See if you get it. But this is what government is these days. Take a listen.
Raquel.
Thank you, Green. The administration has been critical of Senator Tuberville with his holds on military promotions because of social policy and saying that he is harming military readiness. On the flip side of that impasse, and this is something that Republican lawmakers have raised, why is the new DoD policy on abortion critical to military readiness?
I'm really glad you asked that question. No, I mean, I really am.
All right, so basically, why is it you're allowing people to fly to New York, fly to other places, is basically the question. Why is this now critically important?
1 in 5 members of the U.S. military are women, 20%. We're an all-volunteer force. Nobody's forcing you to sign up and go. People volunteer to go. You raise your right hand and you say, I'm gonna do this for a few years or even for my life. And it might cost me my life to do it. And when you sign up and you make that contract, you have every right to expect that the organization, in this case the military, is going to take care of you, and they're going to take care of your families. And they're going to make sure that you can serve with dignity and respect, no matter who you are, who you love,
He's 30 seconds in. Okay. His families, your families, dignity, respect. We're talking about abortion. Get to the point.
or how you worship or don't. And our policies, whether they're diversity, inclusion, and equity, or whether they're about transgender individuals who qualify physically and mentally to serve, to be able to do it with dignity, or whether it's about female service members, 1 in 5, or female family members being able to count on the kinds of health care and reproductive care specifically that they need.
Okay, he keeps bringing up women. We're talking about a subset of the 1 in 5, right? We're talking about what, folks. We're going to move on because I got a lot of other things to get to. He goes on for another 2 minutes, and he says the same garbage. They got to have dignity and respect, and they need health care. And, of course, they need, 3 square meals a day. And the Biden administration, we're going to make sure they have housing, and they're going to have a roof over their head, and they're going to have a temperature gauge and air conditioner in the summer, and they're going to have heat in the winter. I mean, we are 1 in 5 are women, and we're going to make sure those women have water to drink every day, and they're going to have food, and they're going to be meat in that food, and potatoes, and there's going to be vegetables. I mean, I could do that all day, too. This is what our government has become. All because of this stuff, right? Now, he's relatively talented. I mean, Green Jean-Pierre can't do it that well, but that's all he's doing. I'm glad you asked me that question, and let me just sit here and run my mouth for a while. This is, folks, we're in big-time major league trouble. Anyway, all right, so moving on. The New York Crimes had this headline. I caught it this morning when I was reading my stuff. I get up in the morning. I've been getting up earlier and earlier. I'm going through a stage now where I don't drink. I'm trying not to drink during the week. So when I don't drink, I wake up very early and I can't get back to sleep, which is fine. So I was probably up this morning at about 5 o'clock and came across this one at about 5:36 and about fell out of my chair. Headline, Monday was the first time since 1974 that Phoenix had 18 days in a row of temperatures of 110 degrees Fahrenheit or more. The city is set to break that 49-year-old record hit day 19 with a forecast of 115 degrees on Tuesday. That would be today. So I don't know if they have broken the record. I have not checked. I could check. I might do it tomorrow. We'll see. But here's the point of that. And again, this is John Kirby right here, right? This is the type of idiocy you get, not from the National Enquirer, right? Not from the Fulton County Times or something, right? I'm talking about the New York Times, the Washington Post. The writers there are either imbeciles or they're purposely trying to lie to you. Because when I read that, I thought, wait a minute, 1974, I can do some math, 26 and 23, right? That's 49. Okay? So think about that. Right? 49 years to break this record. Now, wait a minute. And we don't know that they've broken it. Right? So they've tied it. They might break it. Now, I know what you're going to say. I know what they want me to think. Oh, my God, it's hot. The climate change. Oh, my God, look how hot it is. I get it. I get that point. But let me allow me to make a counter argument. Right? Wait a minute. It's been 49 years of us pouring pollutants that you say warm the earth into the environment. And we do it every year at a higher percentage than we did it the years. Oh, that's actually not true, is it? Because of some of the environmental measures, we've actually been able to cut some of that. Oh, but China makes up for it, so it's still the same point. But I digress. 50 years and we're just now breaking that record? Sounds to me like the data suggests we're not causing the global war. It sounds to me like very much like the idea of the 100-year flood. Apparently, every 50 years, you have a really hot summer. I don't think that's a big deal. Anyway, I'm not trying to say it's proof positive one way or the other, but here's the point. It's ambiguous at best, but it's presented to you as proof positive because they don't have any respect for you, nor do they care about reality. I threw this one in there just because this is where we are, folks. I'm going to get to Jesse Jackson at the end of the show, and the point I'm going to make about Jesse Jackson when I get to him is going to be a good one, but it's a similar point to this, all right? And Nancy Pelosi, I remember, right before I quit, I think I talked about Pelosi, and, Pelosi got there, oh, it's going to be great, she's going to be the first woman, and all this other stuff she's going to do, and then you look at what she managed to do, and she basically destroyed Congress and helped destroy our system. And really? I mean, I'm not think you should be proud of anybody being the first to anything, but if you're going to be the first one, why would you be the worst? I mean, it's an embarrassment. But anyway, here's one of these little influencers here that's on the Twitter, Victor Shi, who probably got a payment that I talked about over the weekend, or maybe it was yesterday about Taylor Lorenz. I can't remember, but he probably was one of the ones that got paid on Twitter. Anyway, yes! Exclamation point. House Democrats have officially just introduced a resolution to censor George Santos for lying to the public and defrauding Congress. If there's one person who must be censored and held accountable, it must be George Santos. Glad Democrats are taking off the gloves. Now, did you know the Democrats were taking off the gloves? Because what they've been doing for the last 2 years, since, a little over 2.5 years, since Biden was quote unquote elected, that was with the gloves on, folks. Gloves coming off. If you thought you thought they were just being kid gloves, no, you'd be wrong about that. Here's the point of this, folks. Okay, again, it is a further degradation of the constitutional rule of law. I don't think Schiff should have been censored. I don't want to get into a long constitutional thing about it, but here's the problem. Schiff should only be censored for things he does during a current Congress. I don't think a subsequent Congress can censor somebody for something that was done in a prior Congress. Okay? So setting that aside, though, he definitely should be censored if he does it in the current Congress. But it is for behavior you engage in while in the Congress, right? Not things you do on the campaign trail. Okay? So what they're now doing is they're now taking it, again, to destroy the Constitution, and they're taking censor, and they're going to say, oh, well, if we just don't like the way you campaigned, oh, you said make America great again? America was never great. Censor you. I know that's Trump, but you get the idea. That's exactly what they're doing. And this is the bigger problem. I used to talk about it all the time, but you can't say it enough. It's bad enough for people my age to do it. You're teaching young people this. They don't know any better. Victor Shi is I think he's still in college. He doesn't even understand. Those ideas, when I talk about Article 1 and Article 2 and the Constitution and separation of powers, I might as well be speaking Mandarin to this kid. And what you're teaching him is if you don't like somebody, you censor them. And so, folks, just so you know, censor in about another year or two won't mean jack squat. And it's a sad thing. All right. So there's a lot of this going on out there. And I happened to come across this. And this is basically, the presidential campaign is well underway, at least on the Republican side. On the Democrat side, nobody's really running other than Newsom and that seance lady, Marianne Williamson or something. I can't remember her name, but anyway, she's actually running. But Biden's not running. I've talked about that enough. But anyway, one of the things that's going on now in the Republican campaign is the Democrats or the left are trying to get people to sort of engage in the Trump revenge tour. So Caitlin Collins, and I talked about this yesterday, and I think I talked about it on the weekend review on Saturday, which, by the way, I'm going to do the weekend review every week. So if you don't want to listen to these daily podcasts, I'm going to do one on the weekend that'll sum up the entire week and give you the top stories of the week. But I talked about it then, but we talked about, I think we talked about it yesterday, we talked about this idea that the people that you're encouraging, right? Well, Caitlin Collins has this show on CNN. You know how she got it? By being a despicable human being in that one thing where CNN decided to invite Trump. She was nasty, combative. She could not have been worse. She got rewarded for that. So now you're going to get more Caitlin Collinses. Instead, you should be going, we need more David Brinkleys, right? We need more people who seriously take journalism as a calling. But anyway, so she's got a show now, and she was interviewing Governor Kemp from the state of Georgia. And I think Governor Kemp is one of these people that is very underrated. He has done a very decent job running the state of Georgia, and he is much better in person than people give him credit for. But anyway, she brought up this point about supporting Trump. I want you to take a listen, and I'll make a couple points about this. Take a listen. Come on.
You said you'll do what you can to get the Republican nominee elected, even if it's Trump?
I'm going to certainly be supporting a Republican nominee to beat Joe Biden.
But Trump pressured you to overturn the election. He wanted you to call a special session. He said he was ashamed that he had endorsed you because you said you couldn't do what he wanted you to do there. He called you hapless. Even despite all of that, you would still work to get him elected if he's the nominee.
Now, before I give you Kemp's answer, and I will, and if you were watching on the YouTubes or the Twitters or the Rumbles, folks, you saw her. His answer, she was shocked. She paused in her face, and I don't know if she's acting, but she either genuinely felt that, genuinely, not generally, but genuinely, as in genuine, felt that way, or she faked it. Either way, it doesn't matter. The point is, oh my God, how could you possibly support Trump after? And then she lied and said he tried to overturn. He didn't do any of that stuff. We're going to get to Kemp's answer in a minute. But folks, again, this is another thing they do. Now, all of a sudden, if somebody ever says anything bad about you, why, you can't work for them, you can't work with them, well, this is insanity. It's a MAGA extremist party, and they're crazy. Oh, is that right? Huh. Well, let's go back to the Democrats. Let's see, 2020, folks. I'm not even going to go back that far. Here's Kamala and Joe Biden during one of the debates. Take a listen.
That in this campaign, we've also heard, and I'm going
to back it up. I don't know why it does that.
I do not believe you are a racist.
All right, it's good
and
enough.
I agree with you when you commit yourself to the importance of finding common ground. But I also believe, and it's personal, and I was actually it was hurtful to hear you talk about the reputations of two United States senators who built their reputations and career on the segregation of race in this country. And it was not only that, but you also worked with them to oppose busing. And, there was a little girl in California who was part of the second class to integrate her public schools. And she was bused to school every day. And that little girl was me.
Now, let's see. Now, she did that. Now, there are rumors swirling that Dr. Jill Biden, right, the greatest of all doctors, other than Dr. J, but, that Dr. Jill is still mad about her attacking her husband and calling him a racist and all that stuff right there. But see, when the Democrats do it, right, it doesn't matter. It doesn't apply. But all of a sudden now with Kemp and Trump, there's different rules. You can't, folks, I'm not going to sit here and do the whole hypocrisy thing because it's boring, right? But folks, I mean, we don't have different rules. We have rules for one party and no rules at all for the other. And again, it took me, another point about this, because I did a little bit of prep today for the show. And this is what happens. I read the thing, I watched the Kemp thing, and I heard Caitlin Collins pull that nonsense. And I thought, what a bunch of nonsense. I mean, Democrats, when they're running, it's rare, but when they have real elections, right, they go after each other. And then, I mean, she went on to become Joe's vice president. I mean, come here, give me a break. Nobody's dumb enough to think that this is true, Caitlin Collins. But here's part of the reason why that she gets away with it and why we're getting there. When I was going to the Google, right, and I went to the Google to try to find it, folks, this is from this morning at about 6 o'clock. All right. Here is when I typed in Kamala calls Biden a racist. You ready? Here we go. Kamala Harris did not call Joe Biden a racist in the debate. AP News. Newsweek. Fact check. Did Kamala Harris call Joe Biden a racist? I opened it. It was said to be false. YouTube. Kamala attacks Joe Biden's record on race. No, Kamala didn't call Biden a racist. So again, they've erased the truth. I had to go to Twitter. And by the way, just a little pro tip here in case you're looking for stuff now. Forget about the Google. It's a waste of time. I mean, you literally will type in things happened. Georgia Supreme Court denies Trump petition. And you're not going to get the news or the facts. You're going to get whatever they decide you need to know about that. It's a waste of time. Go to Twitter. I went to Twitter, and that's how I found the bite that I played for you. It took a while. But basically what I knew happened, it's there. I was able to pull it up. Let's hear Kemp's answer just because I want to complete the loop. Come on. What's this delay?
I told him exactly what I could and couldn't do when it came to the election, and I followed the law and the Constitution. And as I've said before, that's a lot bigger than Donald Trump. It's a lot bigger than me. It's a lot bigger than the Republican Party. And that's what I'm going to continue to do as the governor. And that's what I did in 2020. But despite all of those things, I believe anybody running for president right now is a Republican that would be better than what we're seeing with the Biden-Harris administration.
I just think it might surprise some people.
All right, so anyway, good answer there. I wanted you to hear that because he's actually fairly smooth, to be honest. A little very underrated politician. As far as it goes. Anyway, here's what she was looking to get. This is Asa Hutchinson. And speaking of the environment that we've created, so there's a little bit of a revenge tour. You got these people, oh, Trump did this and Trump did that. And let me, he said Hank Pence and let him go on and on about why you should go after it. And then you have a bunch of these people And, I don't really know what their purpose is other than, to demonstrate that the Republican Party is actually a political party and that they have people that agree and people that disagree and things of that nature. But Asa Hutchinson is running for quote unquote president. He got shellacked this weekend by Tucker and the vaccine stuff. He had about 0 chance before it started. Now he has 0 minus 50 Udall's chance. It's just a waste of time. But here he is talking about something.
And I want to first say that I have worked closely, extremely closely, with some of the top FBI officials in our country that are dedicated to the rule of law, to fairness, and to public safety. They're fine individuals, and so I've always had praise for our federal law enforcement partners, both in terms of personal relationships and their professional responsibilities. But I believe that Donald Trump has done great harm to our rule of law in this country and to federal law enforcement.
Okay, now, folks, I'm not trying to be funny here. I'm really not. But that's going to get you anywhere, right, in any rational party. I mean, the FBI is out of control, very out of control. The things that have been revealed in the Twitter files and various other places, I mean, it is an agency. I'm not saying the entire agency. I'm not even saying the upper echelon. Maybe they are. Maybe they're working their way through the system, as some people claim, and it's just going to take them a longer time to clean it up. I don't know. But the notion that the FBI is above reproach and it's Donald Trump that is the great harm to the rule of law and federal law enforcement based on what we've seen, like that wouldn't get a vote in the Republican Party in the 1950s based on what we've seen. But in today's Republican Party, even if he hadn't have blown the COVID answer, I don't know where this guy's running or why he's wasting his time. But anyway, so just Asa Hutchinson, in case he didn't kill his campaign this weekend, he sure did there. So anyway, we talked about the RFK thing yesterday, and I debunked it thoroughly. We let you listen to it. By the way, all the shows, everywhere you get them, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, iHeart, whatever. They're all there. They're all in order. You can go get yesterday's. We covered extensively exactly what Robert Kennedy said. He didn't say anything they're claiming he said. But what's happened since we debunked that is people continue to do what I said that yesterday and today. If you do it, they'll use that against you. If you don't do it, they'll manufacture it. It's just that simple. So RFK didn't say what they said he said. They manufactured it, right? And then I don't know why they had to do this. I think it was a little premature. I would have waited a little bit, honestly, if I were them. But they chose not to wait. But anyway, the last couple of days, they've had his family come out and say, hey, he shouldn't have said this. He shouldn't have said this. So Kerry Kennedy, who I've never even heard of. So I want you to understand this. You didn't say something. All right. So rather than accept the fact you didn't say it, they've manufactured it. That's not enough. Then they run to your family, right? I don't know what screams the F word, and I mean a political ideology that ends in ism or ends in ist, right? F, you get the idea. But nothing screams that other than naming names or getting family members to denounce you. Seriously. Anyway, Kerry Kennedy rebukes brother JFK after he linked COVID-19 and Jewish, right? I strongly condemn my brother's deplorable and untruthful remarks last week about COVID being engineered for ethnically targeting. I mean, again, I think it's premature. I think it's a signal they're probably a little more scared of RFK than they should be. But I certainly wouldn't have brought this out yet. But it is, again, folks, it's scary where we're heading. Because, in the old days, they just would have run with there's no reason to ratchet it up by bringing in the family members is what I'm saying. There's something to that. I don't exactly know what it is. It could just be the stupidity. But I saw this in my feed. This is Aaron Rupar. Yes, that Aaron Rupar who takes videos. This is one of these guys that claims to be a historian or claims to be above the political fray. And he'll take things out of context and then, broadcast them, right? And then by the time you figure you've been hoaxed, it doesn't matter. But anyway, there's a whole term for the guy that you've been Rupar'd, okay? Here he is. Rand Paul is just as unserious as RFK Jr., okay? And apparently Rand Paul was recently on Jesse Waters' shows. And, let's take a listen.
Senator Rand Paul. So, Senator, do you know what RFK Jr. is talking about here? Ethnically targeted bioweapon COVID-19? There's a lot of information out of China discussing the development of biological weapons that would be based on your genetics, that would be based on trying to be protective. It's a whole category of research.
Anyway, so I got to move on. I got 3 more windows to get to, but I just wanted to make that point, and I made it yesterday. But it's amazing how quickly I was proven right. I said then that that's what RFK was referring to, and I mentioned Rand Paul, and here you have Rand Paul. I guess great minds think alike, because Jesse Waters thought to go get him on. But then you have these other people like Aaron Rupar. You see, Rand Paul's smart enough not to say anything anti-Semitic. He kept it general, that is genetically based. But yeah, that's what bioweapons are, folks. Bio. You're going to use biology, and races have different biologies and different genetics. I mean, but see, there you go again. See, to the left, Aaron Rupar, that's all crazy talk. It's conspiracy theories. There are no conspiracy theories. There are theories. When you put conspiracy in front of it, that's your opinion. All right. So Hillary Clinton, and folks, I do follow Hillary Clinton. If you go to my feed, by the way, there's things you can put it in. My feed used to be, I don't think it is anymore, but it used to be right down the middle. I mean, right down Peachtree between left and right. I think it leans left now. It's because I tend to follow people more on the left because I want to know what they're saying. I usually pretty much already know what the quote-unquote right thinks. But anyway, Hillary Clinton tweeted this earlier today. After decades of marching for equality, justice, and hope, Reverend Jesse Jackson deserves a restful next chapter. I'm so grateful for his leadership, his service, and his friendship over the years fighting for change. Well, there's a couple of ways that I know how she wants me to react to this, but here's a couple of ways I react to this. You know what, Hillary? If y'all been fighting for change for all them 50 years since they's having heat waves in Phoenix, I'm told, why didn't you do better? Oh, see how there's a little catch-22? It would be, think about, they could be taking a victory lap right now going, God, if you think about the 60s and, you know, people were using water hoses and people weren't allowed to vote and there was all kinds of Jim Crow. Look at the world we've done. Why, you can just vote blacks routinely and systematically, outvote whites especially white men. I mean, that's progress to them. Right? We do have all these things. We got actors. I mean, you can't watch TV on the weekend, right, and see any white people in commercials anymore. This is all great to them. Okay, take the victory lap. Oh, no. We're just as racist now as ever. All right, that's a little bit contradictory. But, you know, there is a little bit of a reality there, because I want you to understand the type of leader that Jesse Jackson's legacy really is. What Jesse Jackson did, he didn't help the black community at all. Right? He didn't help the black community at all. What he did was he helped the leaders, quote unquote, of the black community get in there and get a bunch of the pie. Now, they didn't take any of that pie and share it with their people at all. No. Far from it. Right? And they're not going to tell you and at least give you the dignity. I mean, if you're going to steal the money, if you're going to take the money, if you're going to be able to fly on the private jets and eat the best dinners and take limos everywhere and make money hand over fist, maybe you should tell the people like, well, we kind of did. Yeah, we stole all the money, kept it ourselves, didn't give you any of it. But, you know, we at least got you where you can go and have better opportunities elsewhere, and you can vote freely, and you can go sit wherever you want, and there's no colored sections and none of this stuff. We've gotten rid of all that. I mean, we delivered something. No, they can't do that at all. No. It's just as bad now as it's ever been. It's interesting. Anyway, that was one of the points I wanted to make. The other point I wanted to make is, and I've had this in the can for a while now. This woman's name is, I forget, Pringle, Rebecca Pringle. This is Rebecca Pringle. She is the president of the NEA, right? The National Education Association. Anyway, they had their convention a couple days ago, maybe a week, can't remember, and they all got reelected. Even though test scores went down, everything cratered, everything's worse, all got reelected, didn't make a single change. Anyway, she gave the final speech, the keynote speech, I guess, as it were, and sounded something like this. And if my audio, give me a second if it does. I preset this stuff, and for some reason this computer. Anyway, here she is.
I can hear Chief Seattle crying out to us, urging us to remember, when you know who you are, when your mission is clear, and you burn with the inner fire of an unbreakable will. No cold can touch your heart. No deluge can dampen your purpose. And yea, you are those stars in the darkness. Your light will not be dimmed. Your purpose will drive you in a righteous fight for freedom because you know who you are.
Anyway, she goes on for another 50 seconds or so and gets more applause. And she sounded a lot like John Kirby earlier. It's a bunch of nonsense, folks. It's just screaming and yelling. And what are you doing? Where's your concrete proposal to help the children? I mean, the next generation. I mean, we are living in the greatest time in human history, bar none, right? And these people, they live in an alternate reality. And they're trying, they destroyed their, well, in a sense, they've destroyed their lives. They've made a lot of money. But, their lives, they're miserable people, and they want everybody else to be miserable. But, folks, that's the kind of thing that if you tried that in our world, in the constitutional world, government of the people, by the people, for the people, literally that person, I would want them examined by a psychiatrist. But the last thing I would do is want them running the largest teachers union. But then when you tell me, oh, she runs the largest teachers union, and then you tell me it fails year after year after year, and they did worse, well, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, of course, because she's sitting there living in some la-la land, and she thinks it's all about her. And she speaks in tongues, and I could go on, but I'll leave you with this, because I was just curious. I couldn't remember her name, right? And if you see the tweet here, it's from Christopher Rufo. This woman is the leader of the largest teachers union in the United States, blah, 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 blah. And I go, what's her name? It's Pringles. So anyway, I Googled it. Anyway, and I'll leave you with this. Here is her salary, or total compensation, I should say. Ready? She makes $449,530 a year. Kim Anderson, executive director, $429,294. Noel Candelara, NEA treasurer, $392. Princess Moss, NEA vice president, $378. Vijaya Krishna, $333,784. Kimberly Dominguez, $329. Karen White, $3.20. I can tell you, you go all the way down to 25th. Nathan Allen, associate director, $239. Folks, I'm trying to think of the line. The fault, dear Brutus, lies not in our stars, but in ourselves. I mean, the stuff is right before you if you want to fix it. But to capture the loop and finish it, that's what Jesse Jackson brought us. That's exactly what he brought us after all those years. We did become a less racist country, but mainly what he brought was people like him who grift and steal, right, on the backs of their own people and don't do them any good. And you don't need any further evidence of that. So anyway, that's it for today. How do we do here? About 52 minutes. We're going to try to get it back under 40 minutes, but it's okay if we don't. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please subscribe, tell a friend, and we will hopefully catch you tomorrow.